Welcome back to another tutorial. Today I'll be showing you guys how to do this very simple design. As you guys can, it can be a little bit complicating, but I'm going to show you guys how to do this step by step. It is a placket and pipe design. You're going to do both the piping of the neck and the placket all together. So if you like the video, before you get into it, make sure you click on the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are yet to subscribe. It's going to be a simple design, as you guys can see in my hand. It's a very clean, mature and simple design. So make sure you click on that like button. This way you're going to be putting your button in case you want to look like an external button, or your press button. That's where your press button is going to be. The style is a little bit somehow, but make sure you like the video and let's get straight into the tutorial. Okay, here I already joined my my shoulder, as you guys can see. In case you haven't seen the video of how to cut a bodice, there's a link in the description below, or you can just check my video gallery. I already joined my back yoke and my shoulder together with my front panel. So here on my opening, in case you haven't seen the video of how to do the shadow facing, also I have a video on the channel, you can check it. So the very first thing you're going to do is here, which is going to be the length in which you want to make your placket, the length in which you want the piping to end. On this one, the piping is going to end at 9 inches. So from the opening part of the neck, you're going to mark your 9 inches, as you guys can see, and I'll simply cut it all the way to that chalked area. Make sure you are cutting on that center part. Make sure you don't make mistake. Just like that. You can see that. So the next thing you're going to do now is going to be at the tip of that neck area, because the design is going to be a cuff design, right? So that tip, I will be holding it together. Make sure it is aligned. That's very important. Make sure that place is aligned. And I'm going to simply cut a cuff at that edge. Just cuff that edge. You can see what I'm doing. Make sure your hand is straight. That's very important. You see? Just a cuff edge. So if I open it, you can see what I'm having now. You can see that that place is cuff. That is what we need. So this is what you're going to be having now. You see that? All right, let's go to the next thing. All right, so this is the fabric we're going to be using to pipe. You can see this is the fabric we're going to be using to pipe. So here, if you're going to cut out a pipe, make sure you're cutting the stretchy part, which is going to be the bias area, right? That stretchy part of your fabric, that's where you're going to be cutting. I already cut out a pipe on this one previously, so I'm going to be cutting the stretch. You can see it's a slant, right? I'm going to cut it in slant. So I'll be cutting 1.5 inches on this one. You can see I'll be cutting 1.5 inches. Whatsoever design, if you're doing this kind of a design, it has to be 1.5 inches. That's the wideness of the fabric you're going to cut for your piping. So the next thing you're going to do is to measure how long you need to cut out. So to measure that, just measure from the chalking which you measure before. You're going to measure it all around your neck, all the way back to that your placket area again. You can see what I'm doing. That's why it's a video. You can see what I'm doing and you can hear what I'm saying, right? So you can see the total here is 29 inches, right? So I'm just going to make that 31 just in case. So I'll be cutting 31 inches length here, 31 inches by 1.5 wideness. That's what I'll be cutting right here. So here, this is what we're going to have after cutting it. You can see 1.5 wideness, 1.5 by 21 inches length. So the next thing you're going to do now is to pay attention here. Just pay attention. Attention is very important. All right, so here, just on this, get your wrong side and your right side, because you're going to be, the right side has to be facing the fabric. You can see that. So here, all you have to do now is simple. This is how it's going to be. You're going to need to like stitch this to the fabric from that center part. But first, from that 9 inches in which we measured on our placket before, you have to stitch it all the way around. But first, before you stitch it, we have to you're going to stitch it very tiny. Actually, it has to be small, depending on whatsoever measurement you stitch from here. If you stitch a 1/4 of an inch, it's exactly the wideness you're going to see in the front, right? That's very important. So whatsoever you stitch here, if you stitch 1 inch, you're going to see 1 inches outside. I hope you guys understand, and you're going to stitch it round. But before we stitch it round, we have to add the fusing. That's the technical part. Most usually people will not tell you, but you have to add a fusing to the fabric from behind. right? You have to add the fusing before we do the stitching. So let me show you guys. At this back part, just open your bodice, just open it with the back panel, and I'm going to be using a soft fusing here. You can see, in order to just make that texture of that place a little bit thicker, so that when you're stitching it, it won't be like wrinkling, right? That place it's very important to add some fusing here. So this is what the fusing is going to look like all the way to the neck. You can see what we have. So the next thing is to start our stitch. So from that choke area, I'll make sure the fabric is a little bit longer than that place. You can see here, and I'll be stitching just the foot. I'll be stitching a foot of my machine here, a foot. I'll be stitching just that foot all the way around. So if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you smash the like button. This is then something that you will not just see like anyway. All right, just smash the like button. So make sure what you're stitching here is very, very straight, because if you stitch rubbish at this place, when you're turning it to the front, you're going to turn rubbish, right? So make sure your stitching is straight as possible. So just stitch it straight at that corner area, right? At that corner area, you can see. So just control that fabric, and that is why it is a bias. That's why we cut it out in a bias, so it can actually stretch to any shape in which you want it to stretch to. So at this place, just turn it, just keep turning it. You can see what I'm doing. Just keep turning it just like that. You can see, just keep turning it, keep turning it. You can see, just make sure you just turn it, and make sure what you're stitching here is exactly what you're stitching from the beginning. I told you I will be stitching just 1 foot of my machine, right? That's like a 1/4 of an inch. So that is what I'm stitching all the way to the other down part. So just pay attention here. You can see that, you can see that, you can see what I'm doing. You can see that. You can see that. You can see that. So just try and control that place and make sure it's not like make sure this place is not giving you like a 4-corner shape. It has to be round and curve, because whatsoever you stitch here is going to like be showing outside. So make sure that place is as curved as possible. You can see what I did. So just take your time. You don't have to rush yourself. Just take your time and make sure you're getting an accurate stitch at that place. You can see that. So I'm going to stitch this a little bit longer than that 9 inches, just to be able to take out my notch at that area. You can see here. And this place is a little bit longer than the first one, right? So I will just stitch that place in order to make sure they are accurate. They are the same place. So I'm just going to stitch it. You can see that. I just stop my stitch exactly at the same length. So you can see what I'm having now. They are the same place. Okay, so after, I'm going to take you guys back to the table so we can use iron to just balance everything out. Cut out all the excess thread. That's important. So this is what you're going to be having in the front. You see here. You see what we're having? See what we are having so far? So all we have to do is just, we need our iron to balance all of this out. So while we're folding it, we'll be using our iron to balance it. So let's go back to the table, ironing table. all right. So you see what we're having? I'm going to simply cut out that excess fabric on the pipe, which is for the taping. Pipe and taping are actually the same thing. Whether you say you are piping your neck or you are taping your neck, you're saying absolutely the same thing. All right, so I'm just going to cut the excess fabric right here, and the next thing I'm going to do is to make a notch. I'll be notching that particular point. Make sure you're not notching it after your stitch. You'll be notching that exactly on your stitch area. So I believe you guys can see that. You see what I did, and this side also, I'm going to make a notch. You can see that exactly in your stitch area, and after that you simply have to fold in. You simply have to fold in this. You can see that. You have to fold exactly what you stitch inside. So whatsoever you stitch inside, if you stitch 1/4 of an inch, that's what you're going to see. If you stitch 1 inch, that's what you're going to be seeing. You can see that after folding it with iron. The neck can be a little bit confusing. Just take your time to balance it out. I just fold it inside. I fold everything inside. All of this place, you're going to use iron to balance it well. So let me turn it inside. You can see what I'm having at the back. I just fold it inside, just folding with iron. You can see it's almost looking like what we are doing, right? It's almost giving us the results in which we want, right? Here, all you have to do now is simple. You're going to also fold it at this back side also. You see what I'm doing? You're going to fold it inside also. You see that? And while you're ironing it, we're going to be using Emmy gum. You're going to cut your Emmy gum into 2, right? So that it's going to be tiny. You cut it into 2, and you're going to place it under that place, and you're going to do it. Whatever you're doing here, you're going to be doing it all round the neck to the other side, because it's like it's a continuous fabric, not like it's actually a continuous fabric, and it has to relax very, very well. That's the beauty of what we're doing here, right? It has to relax very, very well. So take your time to make sure you iron it and you balanced it up. So let me do that and show you. And also at this end part, this place, you're going to simply lift that place up, and you're going to do a lock stitch. You're going to lock the stitch from that place. You're going to lock that stitch down. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine now and do the lock stitch first, and I'll fold it all around before we're going to now apply our gum all around the neck. So after folding, you can see what we are having. It's almost giving us the perfect design we are looking for. You can see how smooth those edges are. You can see that. And I already locked that down part. You can see here. I already stitched that part. So the next thing we're going to do is to simply put our gum all around. You can see I already stitched that part, and I already put the gum. You can see how it looks, and when I turn it to the front, you can see what the front is looking like. You can see this. Your iron has to be your friend when you're doing this kind of a work. If you're liking this video so much, just smash that like button and just give it a thumb up. If you have not yet smashed that like button, I don't know why you did not. Just smash the like button. It's very important. You can see that. So all you have to do now is to take your time, just chill, relax, and give it a good ironing. Just iron it all the way round and balance it all up. So what we're going to be stitching is the ditch, like that stitch part. It's going to be very, very tiny, right? We're going to stitch it all the way to the neck area. But before we stitch that, we have to cut our under placket. That's the placket that is going to be underneath this placket, right? So in order to cut that, all you have to do is just to measure the length in which you want to be using. Here, it's not going to be above that curve, so it's going to be 8 inches. 8 inches, right? It's not supposed to be above that curve. It has to be like 8 inches. 8 inches. So it's going to be underneath the placket. I believe you've seen that in the introduction. So I already cut the piece of fabric I'll be using. You can see. So I cut this at a total of 3.5 inches. I'll be folding it together. So the maximum I'll be having is still going to be like 1 inches. 1.5, sorry. So I'm going to stitch the front part. You can see, make sure you're working with the right side of the fabric. You can see. So I face the right side together. So I'm going to stitch that place and turn it. So let me stitch it. So after stitching that place, you can see I'll simply turn it, and I'll pinpoint that edge. You can see here. So after pinpointing that edge, it's very important that you don't leave it like this. It's not going to be balanced. I'm going to open it up and put an Emmy gum inside of that place. That is to give the fabric itself a texture, a stronger texture than just using the plain fabric, right? So I'm going to iron it and make sure it's balanced. And I'm going to put an Emmy gum inside the fabric and weave it. So this is what we're going to be having. You can see, so it's a little bit stronger than using just the main fabric itself. So we're going to go back to the sewing machine now, and we're going to stitch this to the placket. So you have to pay attention here. It's very important. It's very important that you pay attention here. You can see, just make sure that place aligned very well. You can see that. So here, what is important is that our stitch, you know, there have to be an opening right on that place, because we can't just stitch it all around, right? So for the opening, I'll be using 5 inches. So I'm going to mark 5 inches right here. So we are going to start our stitch all the way from this place first. We're going to go around. Then when we get to this place, we are going to put our under placket and stitch it together with the fabric all the way back to that place in which we chalk, right? So let's go to the sewing table and do that. So as you guys can see right here, you see what we've done, how smooth and how clean our work is. Your work has to be as clean as that. That's important too. If your work is not clean and you send me a picture on my WhatsApp, I'm just going to send you below directly. So from that place, you can see, just place it. You're stitching at the ditch, at that particular ditch right here. You can see. So just stitch it all the way. You can see that. Just stitch it. Just stitch it. You can see that. You don't have to rush yourself. Make sure you are not stitching rubbish. Make sure you are stitching inside of those deep, and make sure your stitches are clean. You can see that. Just stitch at that neck area all the way. Take your time. Take your time. If you look at this outfit very well, you are not going to see any stitch, because the stitch are inside of that joining. So it's going to be like the stitch, the piping is just there, because you're not going to see any stitch. So when you get to this place at that cuff area, right, you're going to simply place your under placket. So the weave side is going to be under it. You can see here. It's going to be underneath this place. You can see what I'm doing. You're going to continue your stitch. Make sure what you're stitching is straight. You can see that. You can see what I'm doing. If you like this video, make sure you smash that like button. So far you have not. I don't know why you're. And if you're yet to subscribe, make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell notification to get notified when I upload newer video. Yes. Alright, so just stitch it all the way down. You can see that. Take your time, don't rush yourself. You can see that. You can see that all the way down. All the way, you can see that. And here. Just make a stitch. Take your time, make sure you're not stitching above the fabric. So here at this place, you have to align those two plackets and make sure they are closer to one another, like they are kiss and pleat. Is it kiss and pleat? They are kissing both of to get they are kissing one another. All right. So after that, just stitch it all the way to the top. Make sure you align them together very well, and you're going to stop at that chalked area. Don't forget that. When you get there, just reverse and just lock stitch. You can see that. So this is what we're going to be having. So all you have to do now is to take it to the sewing machine, to the ironing table, and give it a thorough ironing, like a clean ironing. All of those ruffle at those cuff area, you can see. Take your time to give it a good ironing. Make sure those places are balanced. Use a steam iron. I work with generator most time. There's no light here, so I can't work. It's only finishing when I'm doing finishing with the trouser that I will have to like use a steam iron. If you don't have a steam iron, sprinkle some water on the fabric and make sure you're having a smooth and sleek work. So this is what you're going to be having. If you like the video so far, make sure you smash the like button. Just put your press button underneath of that placket, right? Put your press button right there, and this is what you're going to be having. If you like the video so far, make sure you smash that like button. It is very, very important. And make sure you subscribe if you're yet to subscribe to the channel. I will see you on another video. Peace. God bless you.